Have you ever seen that viral clip where a heated debate on pensions quickly turns into an argument about who deserves what? It's a caller named Lynn going back and forth with James Hansen, a presenter on LBC, which is one of those talk radio shows where people phone in and the host challenges their views. Sometimes it feels like the main purpose is for the host to tell callers they're wrong, and honestly, many people keep listening simply because they enjoy winding themselves up. But this particular clip struck a nerve. It wasn't just about pensions. It revealed something deeper, the intergenerational divide that runs across this so-called United Kingdom. In the call, Lynn argues passionately that pensioners should receive £20 zero a year. James corrects her, saying the actual figure is closer to £12 zero. When challenged, Lynn insists she deserves more because she's paid in all her life. But then comes James's pointed remark. Most pensioners, he says, actually get more out of the welfare state than they ever paid in. That one comment raises an uncomfortable question. Is Lynn and millions like her really receiving more than they contributed? And if so, will our generation also get more out than we put in, or less? Let's dig in. To test this claim, we can turn to research by the Pensions Policy Institute, which modelled how much national insurance contributions people make compared with what they later receive from the state. Pension. They examined men and women at ages 20, 40 and 60 across the income spectrum from the lowest 10% of earners to the highest 10%, and adjusted everything to 2022 prices. Unsurprisingly, the results show a strong pattern. Almost everyone, across age groups and earnings, ends up receiving more in pension benefits than they paid in contributions. The only exception, men in their 40s who are among the top 10% of earners. They're the unlucky group paying in more than they'll ever get back. So why does this happen? Part of the explanation is simple. Lower earners, people with patchy work histories, or even limited, company directors often pay less national insurance overall, but still qualify for the full pension. Another key factor is life expectancy. Wealthier people tend to live longer, and that means more years of collecting a pension. For example, the average man in Blackpool can expect to live until about 72, while in wealthy Kensington and Chelsea, life expectancy stretches to around 86. That 14-year gap translates into an extra £167,000 of pension income. And the same principle applies across generations to today's 20-year-olds are projected to live longer than today's 60-year-olds, meaning they'll collect pensions for more years even after paying higher contributions. There's also a gender factor. Women, who statistically earn less over their lifetimes and often take career breaks, still receive the same flat state pension amount as men. Combined with the fact that women live longer on average, it means women in every category, whether high or low earners, end up with a better deal than men of the same age. So, at a glance, James was right. Most people really do take out more than they ever paid in, but here's the sticking point. How is it possible that almost everyone gets more back? Where's all that extra money coming from? The truth is that this whole structure only works because of today's workforce. Contributions from people currently working flow directly to pay today's retirees. In other words, it's a pay-as-you-go system. And once you realize that, the whole thing starts to look less like a neat contract and more like a very delicate balancing act. one that becomes harder to sustain as the population ages. There's also another detail missing from the simple comparison of what you pay in versus what you get out. National insurance isn't just the money deducted from your payslip. Employers also pay a contribution on top of that for every worker they employ, and while it's technically paid by the company, research shows a chunk of it indirectly affects employees, either through lower wages, slower pay growth, or changes in hiring. So really, it's part of the total cost of employing you. When you factor in both employee and employer contributions, the picture flips. Instead of most people receiving more than they contribute, many actually end up paying more in over a lifetime than they'll ever take out. Even so, there's an important truth here. The state pension system is designed to be progressive. It redistributes wealth downward, helping those who earned less or struggled with gaps in employment. That's not an accident. It's exactly what the 1942 Beveridge Report envisioned when it described pensions as a safety net. For some, it's the foundation of their entire retirement income. For others, it's just a base to build upon. But in every case, it remains an essential part of the UK economic fabric, and that's why the radio clip feels so sad. Instead of recognizing this as a system built on shared responsibility, it becomes a shouting match between generations. One side says they deserve more after a lifetime of work. The other worries the system won't even exist by the time they retire. Both feel cheated and both feel resentful. But here's the thing, they're both right. So what's the solution? Complaining alone won't fix anything. If we want to stop the generational fighting and make pensions sustainable for the long term, we need to rethink the model itself. Right now, our pay-as-you-go system ignores the most powerful tool of all, compounding. Instead of passing contributions straight up the chain to today's retirees, why not invest them for future generations? Imagine if, from birth, every child in the UK had £5,000 placed into a pension fund they couldn't touch until retirement. At a cost of just over £3 billion a year, tiny compared with the current £150 billion pension bill, that pot would grow over decades. By the time those children reached retirement age, they could have hundreds of thousands saved, enough to fund annual incomes well above today's state pension level. Of course, the details would be messy, and such a scheme would need to run alongside the existing pension system for decades until it phased in fully. But the principle is powerful. By using time and investment growth instead of endlessly burdening today's workers, we could build a system that is both fairer and more sustainable. And maybe, just maybe, if we start thinking that way, we can move beyond the angry exchanges on talk radio and towards a pension system that truly works for everyone.